know where you can go for resources and additional information. And then at the end, we will be submitting or issuing a survey for you to be able to submit questions. In the interest of time, we are not going to be taking live questions during this webinar, but what we will do is allow you all to submit questions in the chat box, as well as submit questions at the end of the webinar. And we will be publishing the answers to the questions for everyone to see. We are getting close to 100 folks on this call right now, and we would just want to be respectful of everyone's time. And we also recognize that if there's one person that has a question, there's very likely several others that have a similar question or the same question. And so we will just proceed in that fashion. So let's go ahead and introduce and welcome the Municipal Relief Program team. As I stated, my name is Cora Faith Walker. Also with us and on the webinar this afternoon, we have Shannon Koenig, who is the lead administrative support for St. Louis County CARES program. We also have Joan Kelly Horn, who started earlier this week as the Municipal Relief Program Manager. Stephanie Hill, who has been, who's from the County Counselor's Office to provide legal counsel. Kathy Raymer, who is a Municipal Relief Program Associate. Katrina Summer, who is a Municipal Relief Program Associate. And then finally, Megan Jindusa, who is a Data and Performance Analyst who will be conducting the online portal demonstration later on in this webinar. I want to stop and just give everyone a chance to say hello. Great. Okay, so let's move on and talk a little bit about, or just start with a bit of background about this, about the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So on March 27th of this year, Congress passed and the President signed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, better known as the CARES Act, in which a new program that is worth $150 billion, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, and that established and provides $150 billion for states, local, and tribal governments with populations over 500,000 people. Now, the CARES Act specifically requires that any sort of funds and payments from the Coronavirus Relief Fund be used to cover expenses that are considered necessary expenditures that have been incurred due to the public health cost or the public health crisis, COVID-19. They were not accounted for in the budget that was most recently approved as of March 27th, which is the date of the enactment of the CARES Act. And they were incurred during a period that began on March 1st and will end on December 30th, 2020. So those are the three primary requirements. Additionally, as we all know, under the CARES Act, a unit of local government can be eligible for direct payment of the coronavirus relief funds if that county, municipality, town, township, et cetera, has a population that exceeds 500,000 people. The unit of local government does not meet that 500,000 population threshold. It is unable and ineligible to receive direct payment from the U.S. Treasury. However, which is why we're here this afternoon, a state or a county that receives a direct CRF payment is allowed to transfer funds to a local unit, a unit of local government. The use of the CRF funds is authorized in Section 5001 of the CARES Act, and all subsequent guidance has been is issued by the U.S. Department of Treasury. The Treasury Department released its initial Treasury guidance and FAQ on April 22nd of this year. And the most recent Treasury guidance and FAQ from the Treasury Department was updated on September 2nd. So we're still receiving updates from the federal government about how the parameters of this program and the CRF funds will work. I also want to note that there are reporting requirements, and the Office of Inspector General issued a memo back in July 2nd, about what the reporting requirements are, and new FAQ related to reporting came out on August 28th, 2020. So I just want to highlight the fact that this is still a rapidly changing and an evolving program, and so we are monitoring and keeping track of all of that. Just as an overview of what St. Louis County did with the $173.5 million that it received in coronavirus relief funds monies on April 28th of this year. We have broken out and allocated funds for public health and health, with the main goal of saving lives and working to decrease the rates of COVID-19 and the spread of COVID-19 in the community, as well as to prevent COVID-19 from spreading. We also allocated $24.1 million to the humanitarian relief effort, with the main goal of helping St. Louis County residents meet basic needs and funding areas such as housing stabilization and homelessness prevention, technology, support for social and emotional support for children, and then support for seniors and homebound individuals. We also dedicated $24.1 million to economic recovery, which has the goal of reviving the local economy and investing in strategies that work to lift economic restrictions, support small businesses and restaurants, and continue to push the local economy forward during this pandemic. $16.5 million was allocated internally to St. Louis County, with the goal of protecting employees and St. Louis County constituents that receive services from St. Louis County. And then finally, $47 million was allocated or set aside for the Municipal Relief Program, with the goal of supporting local governments and providing financial assistance for local municipalities to offset costs that are related to COVID-19 and their response and recovery. There's additional $10 million that St. Louis County has put in reserve, and we are continuing to move forward with our plans with the goal of expending these funds by the end of the year per the requirements in the CARES Act. So as we were working through developing this program and thinking about the guidelines and the specific goals around designing the program, we wanted to take a couple of things into consideration. And we really, I wanted to just take a moment to thank the Municipal League of Metropolitan St. Louis, as well as many of the mayors, chief elected officers, elected officials, city managers, city administrators, all the folks who reached out to us to provide feedback and thoughts about this program and sharing with us what your needs were. We really took all of that into consideration, and so thank you. And what we really were hoping to do is provide a flexible approach for using the CRF monies to address immediate needs. We want to be flexible because we certainly understand that each different municipality, even within St. Louis County, has unique needs, and we didn't want to be too prescriptive. So that was something that we were really thoughtful about. Additionally, we want to provide immediate support for any sort of incurred or expected COVID-19 related costs. As I stated earlier, there is and continues to be evolving guidance and regulatory requirements that are coming down from the federal government. And as St. Louis County is a direct recipient of the CRF funds, there are pretty extensive requirements related to reporting and the administration of CRF funding. But what we really needed to do and really set out to do was weigh those requirements against, or with rather, the immediate need for support and funding. And so that's why we designed this program in that sort of a two-step process that we're going to talk about here in a bit. Another thing that we were really thoughtful about that emerged over the course of the months since the CARES Act was ultimately passed and subsequent guidance and FAQs have come out is working to optimize the federal revenue streams that are available, specifically FEMA reimbursements, as we are in a that has been activated, really working to maximize those federal resources and doing what we can to get the 75% FEMA match and really make sure that the CRF funds are able to be extended. And we look forward to working with municipalities in the execution of this program so that we can really bring down and draw down as much of those federal resources as possible for St. Louis County to address the public health crisis. And then finally, as I stated, and as I've continued to state, there are very clear risks that are associated with just taking any of this funding. And so we want to be thoughtful about complying with all of the regulations and doing what's necessary in terms of accounting and documentation because of the real sort of the complicated nature of the revenue sources on a federal level, on a state level, and now on a local level. And again, the guidance that continues to evolve about ways that tracking the money and spending the money is considered acceptable. So one of the things that you're going to continue to hear throughout all of this and throughout this program that we really want to emphasize is, starting to pull down as much documentation as possible related to costs that you might have experienced or your municipality might have incurred related to COVID, because we really want to mitigate the risk of any sort of federal audit challenges. And ultimately, if a determination would be made that expenditures were ineligible, the recoupment of those funds from the federal government. Now, I'm going to talk just a little bit about what those available funds are. So as you all know, there was a lot of, I think, very, very good discussion about the way in which we were going to allocate the $47 million that was set aside, and whether or not it was going to be distributed on a per capita basis or in some sort of other form or format. And again, just thanks to all of you who submitted commentary, who let us know what your thoughts were about the distribution approaches that you preferred. And ultimately what we determined was that because St. Louis County's CARES funding was distributed to states and local governments like St. Louis County on a per capita basis, we wanted to be aligned with what we were requiring or setting out for this program as well. And so that's why we made the decision to transfer funds to each of the qualifying or the eligible municipalities on a per capita distribution basis, based on the 2010 census, the same way that St. Louis County was ultimately determined to have a population of over 500,000 to receive the direct funding. The estimated allocations for each of the municipalities were included in the notice of funding opportunity that was released earlier this week on Tuesday, September 15th. And that is in Appendix A, and it's also placed online as well. You know, what we ultimately, the amount that it ultimately ended up being was approximately $69 per capita. However, we also feel as though the additional funding that we've invested and put into the community in those other areas related to public health and health, humanitarian needs, and economic recovery really support what we're calling a per capita plus formula, where we're able to really identify and highlight unique needs in different areas of St. Louis County and invest in a way that is more targeted than a basic per capita basis. But for the purposes of this program, the funding is going to be distributed or is allocated based on the population from the 2010 census. So now I'm going to take some time to just go over very briefly what the application steps are. And again, just explain what we were thinking in terms of the program design and really trying to maximize efficiency and effectiveness in terms of getting the funds out, but weighing the fact that there's a pretty extensive and serious reporting requirements that are associated with the administration of federal grants. So the first step of the process for participating in this municipal relief program involves submitting a preliminary request. As part of that preliminary request, there is an application that has to be completed, a certification that has to be submitted, as well as verification related to E-Verify and work authorizations, which are part of requirements for federal funds and the federal government. All of that was included in the notice of funding opportunity that went out earlier this week and is available online at the online portal, which we will be walking through in a couple of moments here. After all of that is submitted and that information is verified internally, municipalities can expect to receive a notice of award and a funding agreement that will include information related to what would be required in terms of documentation and then that sort of and those sorts of things that's included in the notice of funding agreement. The language is. Additionally, one of the things that will be required, and we'll talk a little bit more about this here in a second, is a resolution or an ordinance that gives the legal authorization for a municipality and or its authorized representative to enter into an agreement and accept this funding from St. Louis County. Once all of that has been done and is executed, I'm just going to go ahead here. Once all of that is done and has been executed, municipalities will be able to receive and get transferred 50% of the original allotment or the allotment that was shared in the Appendix A. The submission dates for providing that information is September 15th, so 2 days ago, to October 2nd. And we have a goal of having all of the 50% allotments made by October 9th. You can, however, you don't have to wait until that time. You can start submitting your applications now, and we are going to be rolling out the funding that you would be eligible for on a rolling basis. The second step of the application process is really around the reporting and the reporting requirements and focusing on substantiating the expenses that are being sought to be reimbursed. And so one of the things that we really want to, again, just emphasize is working now to just gather all of the documentation that you will need to substantiate expenditures that you are going to be claiming either in the preliminary request or in the second part of the second step. So part of the supporting documentation and just this reimbursement request that will be required to be submitted online will require line item expenditure details clearly indicating what the expenditure category it is that is being sought, as well as the documentation that is required for each of the specific categories that is being requested for reimbursement. Additionally, because of the nature of the program and the federal rules and requirements, we are requiring a description, some sort of narrative description for each of the expenditures that justifies how the cost is eligible. And so we will be having a couple of additional webinars and providing technical assistance in the coming days and weeks to assist municipalities with the description narrative, that component, and cost tests. After all that information is submitted, we are going to be engaging a third-party administrator that is going to be tasked with reviewing the reimbursement requests and supporting documentation and making recommendations on whether or not expenditures that are submitted for reimbursement should be reimbursed. I want to be clear, though, that these will just be recommendations and that the St. Louis County CARES team and the Municipal Relief Program team will have the final say over the reimbursements and the reimbursement decisions. That step and that process will be open beginning on October 3rd. So after the deadline for the first step and receiving the 50% reimbursement, we will open up the second phase and the second step where you will submit the supporting documentation that will be necessary in order to comply with the federal regulations. So I won't spend too much time going into this because this is included in both the notice of funding agreement that was issued earlier. I'm sorry, the notice of funding opportunity that was issued earlier this week, and it's also available online in the online portal. But these are the categories of eligible expenditures. So you will see as you're submitting your application or your preliminary request that you can select from 5 main categories: medical expenses, public health expenses, public safety expenses, public safety payroll expenses, expenses that are related to facilitating compliance with COVID-19 measures. And then the 5th one is really kind of a all-encompassing category for any other COVID-19 related expenses that are reasonably necessary to the function of government. So that could include something like the 25% match that would go with the 75% FEMA reimbursement. That's something that the Treasury Department and the federal government clarified earlier this year after the program rolled out, that CRF funds can be used for that 25% match with FEMA reimbursement. But this is, all of these expenditures and these categories of expenditures are included in the Notice of Funding Opportunity in Section 4. and also included online as well. I did want to, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up for a second. I did want to take a moment because I know that there were some questions about this specific provision included in the notice of funding opportunity. And without getting too in the weeds at this point in time, I want to be clear that we are not saying, St. Louis County is in no way saying that payroll expenses and public safety expenses cannot be eligible for reimbursement. We are just saying that we will need the documentation to substantiate the request for reimbursement for expenditures related to public safety. While we certainly recognize that the guidance and the FAQ that was issued, and the most recent one even that was issued, states that payroll expenses for public safety may be presumed to be COVID related because of the reporting requirements and because of the OIG guidance that's come out and that lays out what direct recipients of funding like St. Louis County has to produce in order to be compliant with the requirements. Our legal counsel advised that we make it clear that we need to receive the substantiating documentation to support payroll expenses. More detail about that will be coming on a webinar that will be coming up next week that we'll be talking about here shortly. We also want to talk just briefly about what ineligible expenses we've listed. So the expenses that are listed on the left are included and very clearly barred from eligibility under the Coronavirus Relief Fund program within the federal guidance itself. St. Louis County, because of the overall response and St. Louis County Cares program overall, made some decisions and thoughts about other aspects that are already addressed through our response, and that includes technology that supports learning. It includes the economic support for small businesses because we have done that through the economic recovery bucket, and then other expenses that are related to providing paid sick and family leave or medical leave to public employees. As I mentioned earlier, these are the key dates and timelines for each of the different steps that are coming up. So from the 15th of September through October 2nd, Friday, October 2nd at 5 o'clock is when the preliminary request application submission has to be made. The last day for issuing initial allotments is tentatively set for October 9th, and that's at 50% allotment. And then submissions for providing the supporting documentation will be able to come in beginning on October 3rd. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is that we will be hosting office hours and technical assistance every Tuesday at this time from 1 o'clock p.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. And the idea is really to discuss developments that may occur over the course of the administration of this program. As I stated, it's a changing landscape, and so we want to make sure that we're able to keep lines of communication open, answer any questions that might come up, and really provide that sort of substantive support around technical assistance that might be needed. To that end, This Tuesday, September 22nd, will be our very first webinar where we will be discussing and going over legal and regulatory considerations. And that's going to be led by Stephanie Hill from the St. Louis County Counselor's Office, who has been providing a lot of the legal assistance and analysis throughout this program. With that, I am going to turn it over to Megan Gendusa, who will be giving a demonstration of how to use the online portal for submitting your application. If y'all just bear with us for a moment, we're going to make her a presenter so that she can, so that she will be able to.
Thank you. Thanks, Cora. As Cora said, my name is Megan Gendusa. I'm a data and performance analyst at St. Louis County Government. I am going to share my screen with everyone now and show you what it looks like to get started and kind of move your way through the online application. All right. So this is kind of our home page for all of our CARES applications. We're utilizing SurveyMonkey Apply, which is a really dynamic grant management software tool that the St. Louis County Children's Service Fund uses. And so we are using that for many of our CARES RFPs this year. From this page, you can get to any of the previous funds that we've run through the St. Louis County CARES program, if you're interested in checking those out. All of the recipients for the previously awarded funds are listed on the STL Corona website. And you may find some really great resources for organizations and institutions within your cities that are providing COVID-19 response services. So this is the homepage or the landing page for the Municipal Relief Program. There is a link out from the STL Corona website as well, directly to this page. And here on the landing page, you'll find pretty much all of the resources you would need to completely and successfully submit an application. The funding notice of funding opportunity is linked out on this page. The table where you can find the apportioned allotted funds per municipality is linked out. And additionally, there is a link here for a very useful guidance document that we put together to help you navigate this online portal. You can kind of use it as a print copy version of everything that I'm going to walk through today, so that you have all of the tips and tools that I'll talk about today in a handy paper copy. Okay, so if you've never used SurveyMonkey before, the first thing that you're going to want to do is register. And this is very important that you register as an organization when you're first getting started. And that's because this specific RFP and all of the CARES RFPs that we've run are for organizations or institutions. They're not for individuals to apply. And so the application portal set up where that, in order to access the application, you have to be registered and linked to an organizational account. So once you've done that, basically what you'll be doing that first time you register is setting up the organization account on SurveyMonkey, and then you'll get to the next screen where it asks you about you as an individual as you are collaborating on that organizational account. And so every time you go and want to get back to your application, you will just log in And I'm going to use my test account that I use for all of the CARES apps. And so this is what it's going to look like every time you log in. It's going to say you have no applications, even if you've already gotten started. And that's because, as I said, you both, when you're registered as an organization, you both have have the organizational account and your individual account. And so when you're logging in on that homepage, what you're really doing is logging into your individual account. And then you have to go and tell SurveyMonkey, now I want to work on the organization side of the platform. And so what I just did was go over here to this drop-down menu in the upper left-hand corner of the window and click on the organization name that you want to work with. So I'm going to go to my test org. And as you can see, I have two applications. One, this again was my test account that I walked through on the Healthcare Response Fund. And here I'm now going to jump into the Municipal Relief Program. Okay, so I've already got started on a few of these tasks. And this here is just the basic main page for your application. And so what you'll see here is your individual credentials down here, the name of the organization you're signed into. If you want to add any individuals from your city, maybe you want to add your city manager or a council member or someone to help you work on this application. As the one who set up the organization, you're automatically the primary administrator on the account. And so you'll have this tab to manage your organization's account on SurveyMonkey. And if you click on that in the upper right-hand corner, you'll get to your organization's profile. And here is where you can add members. And so I have added I've added Emily Koenig, my boss, to help me on my application and join the organization profile. And that will just send, when you fill that out and you add somebody here to the members page, by clicking and add a member, you'll just fill it out with their name and their email address, and it will send them an invitation to join the organization. So I am going to go back out to my applications and continue with my application. So the first time that you log in, you're going to have an alert at the top of your screen also. I don't have it now because I've already taken care of this step, but it's going to ask you to verify your account. And that's just going to send you an email to the email address that you listed when you registered your account and ask you, it'll send you an email asking you to click on a link to verify your account. And that's just making sure that the person who is working on the account is actually the email address holder of that account and making sure that those credentials are verified. So what we have here on the main application page is all of the tasks that you have to complete in order to submit a full application. And so I'm going to show you, I've just obviously filled out some fake information on this first page. We just want some basic contact information in order to follow up and make sure that we have all the right individuals listed with your application. And so once you've completed all of those tasks, you're going to see something that says save or mark as complete at the bottom. So down here, you can at any time hit save and continue editing. And when you finish a single page of information, you'll hit mark as complete. And SurveyMonkey Apply does have an auto save feature built in, similar to how Microsoft Office products have, where it'll kind of go off and save your work that you've been drafting every minute or two, but just in case, so that you don't lose any information, or in case your internet connection isn't super stable, you can always go ahead and scroll down and hit save and continue editing so that you don't lose any of your work. So I've completed this whole page of information, and I'm going to mark the task as complete. And now it's telling me, oh, if you have information that is not in the correct format, it will ask you to make sure that you go and edit that to be in the correct formatting. I probably need to put in some slashes. There we go. Okay, so now you can see I have this green check mark filled in, letting me know I've successfully completed that task. I'll click down to the next task in my list, and this one just has one single question. We would like to know what the intended use of the funds are. More in a kind of a budget justification, kind of listing out what the funding and expenditures will go towards. If you need, we have linked this guidance information and the frequently asked questions right from the federal government here in the question. So you can click on those hyperlinks and they will download the PDF files for you. So you can access it right there and then when you're answering the question. I just put in some test text and I'm going to mark this as complete and move on through the application. The next task is where we're asking for that budget request listed according to the categorical expense type that Cora reviewed earlier. So this is where you have those 5 specific types of expenses that are listed as eligible underneath the funding opportunity. And so you'll choose whichever ones that you would like to apply for. All right. You'll enter an estimated dollar amount that you think that you'll spend in that categorical expense, a basic description of the types of expenses that you will include in that category. And then we're going to ask you real quick to tell us if you think you're going to spend the entirety of what is allotted to you based on that per capita rate. And again, here is that table that you can download that has the total value by per capita for each municipality. You can just download that by clicking on the link. And you can say yes or no, I think that we will end up spending that. And if you think that you will or you won't, either way, you'll just put in the total request that you have for what you estimate you'll use out of that value. And when you're finished, just mark this complete. All right, that was pretty quick and easy. We're almost done with the narrative portion of the application. And here we just have 4 specific questions that we need, just certifying that you agree to the terms and the conditions as set forth in the funding announcement. Down here, it's kind of a little bit tricky. We're going to ask you to sign using your mouse or your cursor. You're just going to hold down and try to do your best to sign. It's probably not going to come out too pretty. That's okay. Something that looks along the lines of your name will be accepted. And then because it's not going to be too easy to read, we'll ask you to just type it out at the bottom there and select the date that you're completing this page. Oops. There we go. And mark as complete. All right, there you go. In about 15 minutes, we've gotten all the way through registering and completing the narrative section of the application. Now what we need is just a few required documents This goes along with the CARES funding for all of our RFPs. And then as this being government funding in the state of Missouri, we'll need you to verify your compliance with the E-Verify program. So this first one is asking you to complete a municipal relief program certification form. This was attached as part of the funding announcement as well. It is really just certifying that you are valid to be applying for this monies and notarize that you are in fact the person signing off on that. All right, and so I'm just going to go ahead and attach a sample document to get us through this. All of the uploaded document upload tasks do request that you upload a PDF file version of that. And so if you're originally working with a Word or an Excel document, go ahead and save it as a PDF. It just makes it easier at the end for us to keep all of your files together within your application if they're all in the same file format. Okay, so this was the one that I mentioned earlier. It is the work authorization affidavit and the MOU that you have with the Department of Homeland Security, validating that you do in fact participate in the E-Verify program. And the E-Verify program is a program that the federal government runs. You're probably all familiar with this. Whenever you do hiring, to make sure that everyone that you hire as an employee does have legal work status in the United States. And so they are a legal worker here. So again, that first document, you'll go to the Department of Homeland Security website and log into your account and download an MOU. In that guidance document that I mentioned earlier, there are some image snapshots of exactly what that MOU looks like. And there is an FAQ page on the Department of Homeland Security's website for how to access that MOU if you're having issues. Secondly, on this task, you have to complete the work authorization affidavit for St. Louis County that again says it is signed by a notary public, and it says that yes, you are not only enrolled in this program, you are in fact going through the process and checking all of your employees when you go ahead and hire them. And so I'm just, again, gonna go ahead and upload a sample document. And in this task, there's 3 specific components. It's page 1 of the MOU, the last page of the MOU where you have signed off and the feds have signed off. And then that third page is that work authorization affidavit. So you can either upload those as individual PDFs or you can save them all in one file together and upload them once. I'll mark that as complete. And the last task then is to just go ahead and upload whatever your city's most recent budget is that was approved by your legislative body. Again, I'm going to upload a sample PDF just to get us through the task. And that is the budget that was most recently approved as of March 27th, 2020. So once I have finished all of the tasks, you'll see I have green check marks and a 7 out of 7 of my tasks complete. I'm going to go back to the main page. And now that I've completed everything, you can see not only do I get all my 7 green check marks, but now the submit button has been activated and I'm able to submit. It's going to ask me, do I want to review my application before I hit submit and make sure everything's right? And so here you can see in reviewing your application, all of the responses that you provided and a copy of all of the documents that you uploaded. And if you'd like, just for your records at this time, you can download your own copy to be able you submitted. But this is just an easy way to keep track of it for your own records. I'm sure, you know, your legislative bodies and in your cities will probably want a copy of this, and that way you have a PDF copy to share with them. So once you've done that and you reviewed it and ensure that it's all complete, you can click your submit your application. You'll get a thank you, your application was submitted, and an email with the same message letting you know the next steps will be coming soon. Okay, I'm going to go back to I'm gonna share, stop sharing, and get back to the presentation. If you have any questions, you can, there you go. If you have any questions, you are able to go ahead and email, as you probably have already, MRP, St. Louis County Cares, mrp@stlouisco.com. Let me.
Okay, thank you, Megan, for giving us that overview. And I just wanted to let folks know, I saw a couple of questions that came up in the chat box and in the Q&A. This webinar will be, we did record this webinar and will be available after this is completed. And so we will send a copy of this out as well as have it provided on the online portal. Additionally, if you have any other questions or would like any additional information, you can either submit the questions in the chat box here. You can submit the responses to the survey that will be popping up when this webinar concludes, or you can email that St. Louis County Care MRP email address with your questions, and we will be publishing answers to those frequently asked questions as they come in. As I stated, there will likely be questions that you will have that other folks will have, and so we will be sharing that. We will be sharing that information as well. Again, it is St. Louis County Cares mrp@stlouisco.com, or you can reach Joan Kelly Horn, who is our program manager, via phone as well. So we want to thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to continuing to work with you over the coming days to support your response and recovery efforts for COVID-19. Thank you all again, and have a good afternoon.